Mewtwo versus Shadow? Nah. Shadow versus Mewtwo? Yeah. Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is The Raptor, and today I'm intentionally trying out something a little different. As I said in last week's video, I finally got a new job, and I've suddenly lost quite a bit of time during the week, and I want to see whether or not this VO style of recording can be a reliably significant time saver. I don't know if this will be the new standard or something that happens every now and then or what, but we're trying it out at least for this one. Sorry if you forget what I look like. But just because you can't see my face, that doesn't mean I'm not massively excited for this episode. Shadow and Mewtwo are in my top 3 characters from their respective franchises, if not even higher, and even outside of that, I've said for a while that this felt to me like the Death Battle rematch most worth doing. I fully believe this new episode could easily blow the old one out of the water in basically all regards, so with this effectively being my edgelord Stitch versus Rocket, I cannot wait to see this legitimately awesome matchup finally get what it deserves. So there are actually a couple aspects to this comparison that may be less clear than I had initially thought. Knowing how Death Battle will handle Shadow's max stats is the easy part, kind of, now that we know they scale Chaos Emerald super forms well within multiversal at least, and over 100 quadrillion times light speed, if not infinite to immeasurable speed. Now it doesn't look like Death Battle would scale Mewtwo this high given Pokemon's most recent episode, but Ash vs. Yugi was pretty well anime only, and there's other scaling that can be tossed around for characters on Mewtwo's level. The most problematic thing being arguments of maybe Mewtwo scaling to or close to members of the Creation Trio, through various chain scaling that may not be immediately dismissible, but also not guaranteed to be used either. Personally, I think Death Battle's got decent reasoning to buy this scaling or say it's too much based on various arguments and counter-arguments. If it's not implemented, Mewtwo's nowhere close to Shadow's level of power no matter what, probably closer to Necrozma level. And even if it is used, I wouldn't imagine it's a direct match, at least not without Mega Evolutions, and may not be scaled up to multiversal anyway. Or if you think Death Battle will consider dimensional tiering, even if they don't directly mention it, there's a good chance that would favor Shadow too, given cosmology estimates. The only way Mewtwo can keep up with Shadow's power is if it's given that scaling and they're both placed at multiversal flat, which is possible, but relatively unlikely to me. Speed, however, I think is solidly more up in the air. Again, this kind of depends on which ends Death Battle uses and how they interpret those ends. Shadow and Mewtwo could both have infinite to immeasurable speed, but if they opt for more of a finite high ends approach, I could potentially see that favoring Mewtwo more, at least for attack speed, although again, that isn't a surefire thing and in part hinges on the Creation Trio. Mewtwo does have some moves that can copy or swap stats, but most of these are in reference to stat boosts and don't actually apply to any granted through transformations like Mega Evolutions. So I doubt Super Shadow's power and speed increases would be on the table for that. And anything that could hinder Shadow's speed in particular, like Trick Room, not only does that have incredibly low priority, Chaos Control kind of just takes that advantage back. But even if Shadow will be seen as both stronger and faster, this naturally leads us to the question of whether or not Mewtwo's psychic abilities can win at the battle on their own, like how Death Battle ruled it last time. Well, definitely not in the same way, at least. Shadow actually does have pretty good mental resistances. He grew immune to Black Doom's mind control, and even once resisted the being Ifrit who could control Sonic's mind. And he can resist mind control from the Overmind and more. The super form's resistances are even better and can even restore lost memories, although to my knowledge haven't shown to block out simple mind reading. That last bit combined with Mewtwo's intelligence would allow it to employ superior strategies. I might argue Shadow has better overall combat experience, but not by a game-changing degree necessarily. But sticking with their unique powers, Mewtwo still has some pretty crazy techniques, like force fields, telekinesis, petrification, portal and black hole creation, extrasensory awareness, seeing into the future, energy absorption, and some elemental manipulation. As far as its actual Pokemon moves, some of its most notable ones include Disable, which can prevent spamming of moves, Reflect and Reflective Barrier, which can reduce and re-inflict damage, Me First, which copies an opponent's moves stronger, and Pressure, which can force the opponent to essentially waste double the energy as they attack Mewtwo. It also, of course, has its Mega Evolutions, which give a few new abilities, but generally increase stats, except for Mega Mewtwo Y's lower defense, and potentially Mega Shadow Mewtwo X, despite maybe being non-standard, which grants space-time manipulation and existence erasure. Mewtwo also has a spoon. To be clear, Mewtwo also has way more moves than what I just covered, and it makes him quite a lot more versatile than Shadow. Shadow can resist a good amount of this by virtue of physical invulnerability, but definitely not everything, and especially if the super form can be drained of energy quicker through pressure, that leaves Shadow pretty open. Unless it specifically takes from just the pool of energy, because that's essentially infinite. It should also be noted that Shadow powered through time stops and chaos control abilities before, as well as transmutation and Time Eater's existence erasure. I think it's possible the Black Doom abilities will be factored in here, but frankly I don't think they'd change the outcome one way or the other, and some of his other offensive abilities are kind of just cool ways to blast you, some of which may be countered by Mewtwo's energy absorption. He also wields a gun for his neutral special. So sorry if this prediction feels a little more basic this time around, but like I said, I am trying to figure out how to balance everything now that I'm shorter on time. And honestly, I don't know how much the extreme details would really help here, because this feels like we're not going to know the most logical ruling until we see how Death Battle scales them. It's a weird situation where I think under most basic interpretations of this matchup, Shadow edges out the win, whereas Mewtwo kind of needs the less concrete things to work out for it, but I actually could see those things working out. If Mewtwo can keep up well enough in stats, which I think you can possibly make the argument for, especially in speed, its Haxier and significantly more varied arsenal can likely overwhelm Shadow and kill him in base at least. That's the kind of comparison where Super Shadow's time limit could actually be the fatal deciding factor. But as I said earlier, I think there are generally more ways to look at these characters that put Shadow's power much higher than Mewtwo's, and somewhere they're tied in speed at worst, and I think that's more likely to tip the scales given Shadow's own abilities and also his resistances. Even with Mewtwo's psychic defenses and methods of forethought, I really don't see anything stopping Shadow from going super, stopping time, and hitting Mewtwo with enough energy to kill it. Something that can't really be disabled or swapped away. That's also something that doesn't really give Mewtwo the opportunity to outlast Super Shadow with its own super forms, which I do think is questionable in the first place with a big enough power difference. It's not that Mewtwo can't kill Shadow, it's just that Shadow's traits ultimately mean more across the scenarios. But again, this is just under the interpretation I'm predicting Death Battle will go with. I'll stand firm on the belief that there are good faith arguments that would result in Mewtwo winning. I seriously do believe that. We just need a better grasp of how the stat comparison will be analyzed. I'm still going with Shadow, tentatively, but just know that if Mewtwo wins, I will not be nearly as surprised as it seems a lot of other people will. As always, I would love to hear what you guys think. Who do you think's gonna win? Is this a rematch you wanted to see, or am I celebrating alone? Let me know down in the comments below, and also like and subscribe if you want to see more content from this channel. Massive thanks to all of my channel members. I appreciate you guys most of all. But yeah, that's it for me. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.